bring 'em out, bring 'em out. Bring 'em out.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fiend Podcast with your hosts, Zay, Young Vander, and Bro Joe.
Welcome back to the best fantasy football show on the air, the Fantasy Football Fiend Podcast, presented to you by Manscaped. I'm your host, Zay, the Fantasy Football Fiend himself. And today I got my guy with me, the Fantasy Phenom, Young Vander. Holla at the people.
Fantasy Fiends, what's going on out there?
Yo, it's just the two of us today, but we're going to make sure we bring the heat. Bro Joe, make sure you take care of the fam. We'll see you next week. We have an epic show for you guys today. This is the That's My Mans Nem episode. We stake our claim. We put our name on it. We say it with our chest. These are your league winners. But first, we're going to go ahead and start with our news.
And now your fantasy news.
We have Baker Mayfield, who has supposedly won the job. Don't know if that's saying much. If I'm Tampa, I'm definitely one of the first teams trying to call the 49ers, your boys, to see whether or not we can go ahead and get Trey Lance, because he may just be their best shot off top. So how do you feel about the Baker Mayfield situation and the Trey Lance situation?
I mean, it just seemed like Tampa Bay chose the lesser of two evils, right? I think they're kind of making a mistake here, only being that these guys are pretty much neck and neck as far as competition. Yeah. But you already know what Baker Mayfield is. You already know what you're going to get. I think you should get the guy Kyle Trask, give him an opportunity, see if there's anything there before even moving forward to a guy like a Trey Lance. You don't even know what you have here in him. So I think if it's even, you got to give the younger guy the opportunity.
So does that make you kind of feel like it being even is just them being nice and not trying to destroy his confidence? Because if we know that if it's even, you should go with the younger guy, you would think they would know it. So maybe it ain't quite even.
Yeah, well, it's two things, right? Number one, he's the veteran. He has experience being the starter, and they pay him money to come in.
True.
So I think those two factors kind of like gave the leverage a little bit more to Baker than it did for Kyle Trask.
I'm just hoping that they know what they're doing, because I've seen this movie before and it don't normally end very well. But things are looking up for Joe Burrow. Looks like he's going to be ready for week one. No, he had that calf injury and everything, but his coach is basically saying he's looked as good as of late as they've ever seen him look. So I don't know, again, if that's coach speak and they're trying to, prep him up a little bit. I mean, his boy Chase basically said that don't come back to week 4 if you take it, because I just want to make sure that you're good for the long haul. So how you feeling about this whole Joe Burrow situation?
Well, I mean, I think, Chase is speaking from experience with him last year. Sometimes you want to be out there with the guys, so you kind of forcing your return. Being a calf injury, he was doing a little trotting around the last preseason game. So he may be all right. It's different for a quarterback than it is for a wide receiver as far as movement, things like that. So, and Burrow's not known for a guy that is a runner, so he don't need very much movement as far as that calf injury. So I think he'll be back a lot sooner than you would in a guy like a skill position guy.
You got Jonathan Taylor, who has been given permission to seek a trade. However, the caveat is that trade has to be facilitated by or before next Tuesday, which is when the 53-man roster has to be solidified. So do you kind of feel like this is I'm kind of giving you permission, but I almost kind of want you to fall flat on your face? I just don't want anybody else to be able to say that I didn't give you a chance. Or how are you feeling about this Jonathan Taylor situation here?
I'm surprised, actually, that Irsay even gave him this opportunity.
Facts.
But being that it's such a short window, that's kind of expected, because the season's about to start, right?
Right.
So the thing is, the compensation, what would you get back? It's been rumors that the Colts are looking for a first-round pick.
I don't see that. 49ers, I mean, Carolina didn't even get a first-round pick for Christian McCaffrey. So
right.
First-round pick, I don't see it. But
right. Either a multitude of picks similar to a McCaffrey deal. A lot of execs around the league are saying things like, a second is possible. Some people say maybe a third and a fifth. So it's probably going to be a collective of picks. A first-round pick is kind of reaching. But again, if you're a team like Kansas City Chiefs,
Buffalo or
maybe
Kansas City.
what I'm saying is we're not saying they're interested, but where your first round pick is more like a second, early second, because you think it's so late, that'd be a team I think would probably try to take the opportunity because it's not an early pick. Kind of an early pick is different, but if you're a guy and you're a team that's expected to be late in the playoffs, then pick 31, pick 29 is not really that bad of a trade off for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if it can get you over the hump and get you in the Super Bowl or help you win the Super Bowl. So
Right.
Josh Jacobs is staying in Las Vegas. However, there isn't a contract that's imminent. So is he actually going to play if they don't give him a contract, or is he going to be the one to kind of stand on his principles and maybe won't come back to like, week 6 or 7, so that way he still gets credit for the league year, but he can kind of still stick it to the team a little bit?
No, I think he's going to play actually. Him being in Vegas is a big sign, right? Because think about it, he left. So now he's back. So I think they're going to try to get a deal done, maybe similar to like a Saquon, or you got that 1 year with a little additional money. So I think it's going to be a deal similar to that. But I think he's going to play. Devontae Adams was kind of vocal about it, want him out on the field as well. So I think Jacobs week 1 should be, he doesn't have to get ready. He's already in shape. He knows the playbook. So I think they'll get something done before the season kicks off.
Continuing along down the path of running backs, you're gonna have to help me out with this one, because on with my fandom hat, I'm like, okay, I kind of like this. This makes sense. But with my fantasy football hat, I'm like, this is disaster waiting to happen. Yeah. So the Patriots are giving Ezekiel Elliott kind of an uptick, if you will, in usage per Mike Reese, who's kind of the guy in the know as far as the Patriots are concerned. So how is this going to work out for fantasy? Do we now have to knock Stevenson down several notches, being that Zeke is getting goal line work and he's looking to be the third down guy catching the passes out of the backfield without having that pass catching work? That kind of hurts a guy that I kind of had in my top 10 as far as PPR is concerned, if he isn't going to be getting any pass receptions. So how bad does this hurt Stevenson? Or is it an overreaction? And in real world football, is this a step in the right direction, or should Stevenson just have been the man?
I mean, I think Stevenson has just been the man. But this is not the case. This is like the Corey Dillon experiment all over again, right?
Right.
So, and we said this, at least I did. I think you did as well. Zeke is going to vulture, take some of that third down road pass protection, because he's great at that, and also goal line work. And those two things really hurt a guy like Stevenson, because I mean, he's a 3-down back himself. I mean,
right. Should have been at least.
Right. And for all the owners that had him was thinking he's going to be by himself, because the other guys didn't seem much of a threat. The Ty Montgomerys, the Kevin Harrises of the world didn't look as much.
Strong.
Right. But this guy, Zeke, is a little bit more of a threat. He's a bigger body. So those goal line touches, again, if you're taking those away, then definitely it's going to take a hit. So where a lot of people thought Ramondre would probably be a top 7 on a lot of lists, up there in that range, top 10, this could hurt. Could hurt a little bit.
So if you're the guy that has Stevenson, do you stand pat, or do you try to move him before you see how much of a role Zeke is going to have?
Well, if I'm in a redraft league, then I may move. But in the Dynasty League, definitely not, because Zeke may be a 1-year thing, right? True. So I think if you're in a Dynasty League, you keep him. But I think if you're in a redraft league, I would consider, it depends on what you're getting back, the compensation. But, it really depends if it's redraft or Dynasty for me.
And this is why we don't draft until right when the season is about to start, because you just don't know what is going to happen. Injury-wise, last-minute trades that completely upset the apple cart. For somebody, it's a steal. Whoever got Zeke when, nobody was drafting him. But for the person that drafted Stevenson as if he was possibly going to be somewhere between running back 5 to 10, not so much now, in my humble opinion. Speaking of another handcuff, Elijah Mitchell is back at practice on Monday. Man, look, he's one of those guys that make that list of people that I'm just not going to touch. He just stays hurt. Like I can't trust him. And even if he stays healthy for the year, I don't know that I would want to buy that lottery ticket and hope for the best, if that makes sense. What you got on your guy?
I mean, if he could stay healthy, then I'll take him. I mean, because think about it. When even last year, he was getting a lot of carries with McCaffrey on the team, right?
Yeah, yeah, but
So
that's a big if. If if's a fifth, we'd all be drunk.
yeah. Most
So,
definitely. I mean, injuries has always been his thing. But I mean, if
yeah,
he's healthy, I think he's a good play. He's been getting, 10, 12 carries, games where McCaffrey's in, then we keep him fresh. So, but he's one of the most popular handcuffs in the league. If you got McCaffrey, hopefully you have him as well. So, or if you are the Mitchell owner, you can wave him and dangle him in front of the McCaffrey owner's face for another piece. But he's kind of like Mostert 2.0. If that makes sense. Like these guys,
yeah,
they do
real.
well. He's made for this system, but health has always been the issue.
Just like Wilson too. I mean, like they when they're in there, they're in there. But
Yeah.
how often are they in there? That's why it's normally like 4 or 5 of them available, because they know that the guy that's the guy might not be the guy in any given time. So it's interesting how the 49ers seem to always get those guys that stay hurt but produce when they're not hurt. It's like they go after that guy for some reason. But speaking of a couple other guys that are hurt, that kind of want to get your opinion on whether or not it's a big deal, small deal, no deal at all. We have a few wide receivers to speak of. Have Jackson Smith and Zibba, the rookie out of Seattle, my Buckeye. He has a slight fracture in his wrist that he's having to get surgery on. But the word around town is that they're optimistic that he may still be able to go week 1. Are you as optimistic, or do you kind of reserve a little bit more?
Nah, I heard some other things as well. I heard he could possibly be out maybe this is a 3 to 4 week thing. So that may push him out to miss week 1. That boy hand looked like Pillsbury Doughboy, you know what I'm saying? It's pretty swollen. So again, this could maybe be a 3, 4 week injury thing, and I think that'll cut him kind of close to week 1.
Right.
So I could see him missing the first week. They got the Rams, who's probably going to be one of the worst pass defenses in the league this year. So I think they're okay with sitting him for that first week and maybe get him back in there week 2 or 3.
Now, we also have Terry McLaurin, who is currently day-to-day with a toe injury. I know it's day-to-day, but those toe, ankle, feet, those lower extremity injuries, they can just pop back up at any point in time. At least it's not a Liz Frank sort of a situation. But how do we feel about this toe injury as far as Scary Terry is concerned?
I think he avoided a major injury. This could have, a lot of people thought it was going to be turf toe. But
Right. Oh, yeah, that's another big one.
right. So it's a sprain. So that's pretty good news for him. It seems like he was heavily involved when in the last preseason game. So they dodged a bullet there. So I think he should be fine. I think he should just roll him out as norm with that injury.
And lastly, we have Jalen Waddle, who is still dealing with the abdomen injury, and the Dolphins are trying to bring him along, slowly, if you will. They're being cautious with him. Does that give you cause for pause that this may be something that can kind of pop back up during the regular season? Or are they kind of taking the route of none of these games matter right now? We already know what you can do on the field, so we're just not going to risk it. Like, for me, sometimes when a football team feels that a football player playing football is a risk, that's kind of scary for me to have all the confidence in them if your team doesn't. But how do you feel about Waddle?
I think he's fine. I think it's just maintenance. Again, these games are meaningless, and you want to be ready week 1. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything to be concerned about if you are a Waddle owner.
That pretty much does it for the news. We're gonna go ahead and get into my mans and them. All right, so again, this is where we stake our claim. We put our name on the line. We tell you who the league winners are going to be, and we give you our logic behind it. We're going to start out with the quarterbacks. I do have 2 quarterbacks and then an honorable mention. I'll start out with Justin Fields. Justin Fields for me, the Bears quarterback. Last season, he had arguably one of the best rushing outputs we've seen from a quarterback. But they've also added DJ Moore in the offseason. Chase Claypool will now have had a half of a season and then a full offseason to get acclimated to the offense. And now the guy that was your number one receiver is your number three receiver, being Darnell Mooney. And it looks like Fields and Cole Kmet had a pretty decent rapport as well. You add to that, you have Herbert, who's going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield, along with a thumper like Deontay Foreman, and then Rashawn Johnson, the rookie, who's kind of a chameleon, can do a little bit of both. I'm really feeling like I also combine the fact that Fields averaged somewhere around about 20 and a half points per game. Obviously, some games are way higher than that. A few games are a little lower than that, but this guy has the tools and the skill set to be one of them. And right now, I kind of feel like he can end up being a top 5 QB, and he's not been currently drafted there as far as ADP is concerned. Justin Fields is my man's in there. What you think about Justin?
Man, I gotta see it. You know what I mean? As far as his arm goes, we know what he bring with the legs, but do you expect another season of that?
No.
This year? I don't know.
I don't think he's going to rush as much, nearly as much. I don't think he'll have to, though.
Right.
But the weapons that he has now, I think he can get a lot more yards as far as throwing the ball and a lot of yak.
Yeah, I want to see him be successful as a passer before I really buy the Justin Fields thing. I mean, if you watch those games, like this dude was running a whole lot last year. Like,
absolutely.
I seen one game here like over 20 carries or something. So that's a lot for a quarterback.
Yeah.
But I want to see him, DJ Moore. I want to see the rapport. I want everything that the Cole Kmet. I hope that thing still continues. Mooney now moves to the number 2, which is a good spot for him. But I want to see it all connect before I really buy it. You know what I mean? And again, I know you want to be ahead of the curve a lot of times. We know the athleticism he has and the promising passer he was coming out Ohio State. But I want to see it.
Because I'm a Buckeye fan, I've seen him throwing the ball plenty. Yeah. So for me, I can say that I've seen him be able to pass the ball when there's someone good enough out there to catch the ball. So that's why I'm a little bit ahead of the curve, if you will, as far as feeling like he's going to be solidified this year as that dude. I kind of feel like he's going to be kind of like, okay, when Jalen Hurts got AJ Brown, that's how I feel about Justin Fields getting DJ Moore. And I'll talk a little bit about DJ Moore a little bit later on, but I kind of feel that same level of increase. And I feel that if you were ahead of the curve on Hurts, it's the same type of scenario, the same type of offensive output with Fields this year. But who you got up first?
I'm gonna go Anthony Richardson, right?
Okay.
I mean, this guy's ADP is like 112. So that kind of puts him in sleeper territory. But I mean, we had a conversation a few shows back where I spoke on Tim Tebow when he was a starter.
Right.
When he finished. We seen Taysom Hill when he plays QB1 numbers. And we just spoke about Justin Fields last year. He wasn't a great passer of football, but look at the impact he had as a runner. This dude got it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's big, he's fast, he's extremely athletic. And I think this guy here can really be a winner. I could see him finishing top 10. And that would be a good breakout for a guy like him.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna say 7, top 7 is possible. He's starting right off the gate. Now we don't know who his running back's gonna be because Jonathan Taylor can very move. But again, that may be in his favor as far as taking off a little bit more. Also, with the new coach there, they got that rugby style play they love to run on the one. And I mean, this big body dude, I could see him having at least 7 rushing touchdowns this year. I think that's very doable for him. He may even maybe 7 to 10. I think he can very well maybe touch double-digit touchdown rushes, but definitely 7. And I'm gonna go with Anthony Richardson, man. He's just my guy. I think he can be a breakout. It's not gonna be pretty. It's not like if you're watching football, it's not gonna look good football wise. But as far as fantasy, I think this guy here can be definitely a winner this year.
Yeah, I want to disagree with you just for entertainment purposes, but I
Yeah.
can't. Because here's the thing, right? Richardson is most likely going to be in the same or similar scenario that Justin Fields was in last year.
Right.
He's just as athletic, but
Right.
he's also a bigger guy, so less likely to get hurt. Better O line than what Justin Fields had.
Yeah.
And I mean, he, as far as fantasy is concerned, it's checking all the boxes for a fantasy uptick, if you will. And when you're talking about where his current ADP is, with I think that'll increase quite a bit now that people know that he's going to be the guy. But I don't think it'll increase to the point where you have to shy away from him. So yeah, I mean, spot on. Anthony Richardson is definitely one of those dudes.
I mean, anytime, man, you got a dual quarterback, he's always money when it comes to fantasy. And this dude, he has a cannon of an arm. He's gonna have some growing pains for sure. But again, let's say for instance, 80 yards and a touchdown, right? 60 yards and a touchdown. Right. That's already 12 points. There hasn't been anything done with your arm yet. So 60 yards and a touchdown is already at 12. And I'm not saying you're gonna average 60 yards a game rushing, but 60 yards and a touchdown or 45 yards and a touchdown is not. There's going to be some games where he can have some big games due to the legs. So
very doable, definitely. Now, my next guy up, Jared Goff. Jared Goff, average draft position is QB 17. He finished as QB 10 last year. The O-line is better, more weapons, more familiar with the system. There's no way, barring injury, that he doesn't outdo that current ADP. So for me, when you can get a guy that can be a top 10, but in a 1 QB league, especially when you're talking the average of 12 teams, this guy's going to be available possibly on the waiver. I mean, because a lot of people don't do, 2 quarterbacks in a 1 QB league, but even when you're looking at 2 QB leagues or superflex leagues, this is going to be a guy that you can get as your starter, and you've already taken care of all of your other positions. So I just really see him not only being safe, but having upside and giving you the ability to take care of your starting running back, your starting wide receiver, a flex spot or two, and he still be there and give you the upside of still being a top 10 QB. So for me, Jared Goff is easily my man's in there. Who's your second guy? Do you have a second guy for quarterback?
Yeah, real quick, I'm gonna dig a little deeper on it, because I always like to get a guy that nobody really pays attention to, or not one of the guys expected. But I gotta go back to the Mac Jones experiment, man.
Okay.
Why not? He has an offensive coordinator,
right?
Now he has somebody that can really call plays. They don't have a defensive guy calling offensive plays, and I think year 2 really hurt his growth. A lot of people forgot the season that he had as a rookie. I mean, it was a Pro Bowl season. Right. For 3,100 yards, 22 touchdowns, completed 67% of his passes. Not bad. And I think he can build off of the first season. Just erase last season out your mind. That never happened. It shouldn't count for a guy like Matt Jones. I don't think it's fair to him. But he has a few weapons here. Juju Smith-Schuster now is in the fold. We hear a lot of this 12 personnel going to be coming around. Gesicki and what's my guy name?
Hunter
Henry, who they say had a really good connection so far in camp. And you got the signal caller, like I say, an offensive mind, who has a familiar with him as far as Alabama and things like that. So I'm going with Mac Jones, man. I think if you dig in deep, there's a guy who can very well have a great season and surprise a few people. He's not going to be on radars due to last season and due to people trying to put him in a quarterback controversy with the backup. So I'm gonna say Mac Jones, man, will be my guy that people sleeping on, but I think can very well pay dividends this year.
Your lips to God's ears. I'll take it. Anything, any good news dealing with the Patriots, I'll take it. Because lately, all the news ain't been good news. So, yeah, definitely. My honorable mention for QB, I'm going to throw out there, and this is a guy that he took a step up last year, but I think this year we can kind of see him being the guy that we all thought he was going to be coming out of college. That's Trevor Lawrence. They got an adult in the room at coach. They put together a squad that now he has talent all across the field, including coming out of the backfield. He can run the ball, so he's not a running QB, but he's going to get you 20, 20, 30 yards in rushing just by happenstance in most games. So I love his floor. And if Ridley is anything close to what he used to be, I don't see how Lawrence isn't one of those guys this year. And based on where he's been drafted right now, I can kind of definitely see him outperforming his current ADP. So my honorable mention at QB, I'm going to throw out there Trevor Lawrence. You got an honorable mention? Or are we moving on to RB?
We can go.
All right, so with running back, why don't you go ahead and start us out with your first running back?
Okay. My God. And this is boring news, right? Because
Okay.
there's been so much and that's in Minnesota. And it would be Alexander Madison.
Okay.
But this undisclosed injury, they're not speaking on it. Who knows what's going on? But if you look at the 7 career games, he has 15 plus touches. He's averaged 16 fantasy points a game. And that would have put him at running back 8 last year.
Wow. Okay.
So, I'm going to take that. If he can finish running back 8, that's a hell of a climb, being where he's currently being drafted at. And in those 7 games, he averaged 123 total yards. And the guy can catch out of backfield. He's big enough for them to let him punch him in. He vultured a couple touchdowns last year from Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Because I had Dalvin. He isn't a sure thing, I would say, but I'm optimistic that he can do well this year. And it depends again if Kareem Hunt is signed. There's been all kind of different things thrown around. So let's wait and see.
They're even looking at JT right now. And based on the fact that you really don't have to pay running backs all that much money, like if you got Jefferson and JT on the same team, man, look.
Well, they just paid Madison though. Madison just got a little small check. He got a little check from them. And then again, Jefferson, you spoke of him. Another reason why I think this guy gonna see some pretty decent running lanes because safety's going to play back, messing with Justin Jefferson. So with the fear of the pass, so I think those will create better running situations for him. So I'm gonna say Alexander Madison for me.
I like it. So my first running back up, Aaron Jones. He is RB1, has been for several years, but his average draft position is running back 16. He was RB9 last year, and I can see quite an increase as far as attempts are concerned. There's no way they let Jordan Love throw the ball as much as they let Aaron Rodgers throw the ball. So I don't see how he doesn't have more bites at the apple. And with those additional attempts, I can see him doing work. So if you can get a guy at RB16 that has been a top 10 RB for the last several years when he hasn't been hurt, I don't see how you can go wrong with Jones. If you started out, maybe you started out wide receiver, Jones will still be there. And you're getting RB1 value, and you've already solidified your wide receiver spot. So, I mean, I just don't AJ Dillon isn't the dude that we thought he was going to grow into be. And unless there's some huge turnaround with him this year, I don't see Jones getting any less carries. And with the increase in attempts, just in general, even if Dillon does get a few more bites at the apple, Jones's worst case scenario is getting as many as he got last year because of the overall increase in running back rushing attempts in general for the team. And you got to think about it too. The coach prefers to run the ball. It was just the fact that he had Aaron Rodgers there, who was kind of, basically saying like, nah, I'm him. I'm gonna throw the ball. So that's what kept the attempts down for the running back. And again, he was still RB9 last year, and I believe RB8 the year before. So I love the prognosis for Aaron Jones coming up this year. Do you see it differently, or or do you feel like I'm on the right path here?
Nah, I could buy that. I mean, like you said, this coach really comes from running, style of play. And again, I mean, what's more comfortable for a quarterback as a running game? At the same time, Aaron Jones can also catch the ball.
Absolutely.
And I could see Jordan Love doing a lot of dump offs to him as well. So I'll buy it. You know what I'm saying? I think Aaron Jones is kind of being running back 16, he's definitely being slept on. So I definitely buy that.
Who you got next up?
Again, man, you know me, I like to try to dig deep sometimes. I don't want to go with the norm guys that look more typical, but I'm gonna go Zach Charbonnet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tell me more.
This guy can be a winner, man. Look at his side. I mean, Kendrick Walker is the starter, but he's coming off a major injury. Right. He's already injured now. Like, he's just working his way back to practice. And Charbonnet is not only a big body, he's probably the best pass catcher on the team with that big body. You know what I'm saying? The guy can really catch the football. We already know how Seattle does with the running backs when given opportunity. I think he's going to take some opportunity early. And with that, I think he can maybe steal a lot of, carries and things like that from that. Who would you say is a goal line back?
Probably Zach. I mean,
if you had to pick out of one, you would say, I'm
gonna give it to the bigger guy that has just as much burst as the smaller guy.
And he's already the best pass catcher in the team.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as running back's concerned. Yeah. He's the best pass catching running back on the team. So that's a recipe.
Valid point.
That's a recipe to, goal line and receiving. That's a recipe to get you, some playing time. So he's a guy people are not really looking at. So I like him. And he don't have the same, he's not this big burst, but he's physical, you know what I'm saying, downhill runner, man. And this is the kind of kid that Pete Carroll likes. So
he falls forward.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Zach Charbonnet, and I think he can very well be at the end of this, because you can understand, right? The season is broken down to so many parts.
Right.
I think he could be the guy at the tail end,
on the back end,
right? Gotcha. To definitely get you over the hump. Because I mean, let's see if Walker can last the whole season. He's been bitten by the injury bug a good bit, bitten right now as we speak.
Right.
So
right.
And that's a pretty running tough division. You got 49ers twice. You know what I'm saying? The Rams defense is all right. So let's see if he can hold up. I'm gonna go Zach Charbonnet, man, out of the blue, out of nowhere.
I like it, especially when it's a guy that you don't have to put very much capital in at all, and if it does go left, whatever. I mean, you didn't have it wasn't like you banked your draft on him, but if it goes right, man, like that could be one of those moves that definitely wins the season for you.
So, real quick, let me ask you a question though. Are you comfortable if you're sitting your drafting right now? Are you comfortable with playing with drafting Kenneth Walker? That's a question you have to really ask yourself. Are you comfortable drafting Kenneth Walker right now as of today?
I'll tell you why I am. Because I can get Charbonnet without it costing very much. And I'm comfortable with the combination of the two of them.
Charbonnet not included. This toy,
Charbonnet not included.
this toy don't come with the batteries included. They separate. You know how some toys they say batteries included. Nah, there ain't no batteries in this one. Do you
No
want to buy?
warranty, no batteries. Oh man.
Are you confident with drafting this guy standalone? And you can't, and the handcuff is not yours. Are you comfortable?
There's some pivots I would prefer to take around his same ADP versus taking him.
And for
And
that
be
reason,
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
I mean, this next guy, you actually just talked about him a couple minutes ago, but I was flabbergasted when I saw his current average draft position. It just doesn't make sense. But Dalvin Cook, 4 straight seasons with 1,000 yards or more. His handcuff is now Breece Hall, who's recovering from an injury that normally minimally takes you half a season to really get back from. And for many running backs, it'll take you a full season. It's not until that following season that you really get back. And this guy is RB 30 as average draft position coming off the board.
That's
and I'm like,
going to rise though as the season. Now that the news, that's probably before the news.
But here's the thing: National Draft Day is coming up in like a week. So unless you're paying attention, people normally draft who they see. And I don't see it rising so much to the point where he's going to be where he should be. He's going to be one of those guys that you have to already just have queued up, or one of those guys that you already have in mind, because a lot of people, again, okay, I see the 4 wide receivers on the board. I see the 4 running backs. I see the 4 quarterbacks, the couple of tight ends, whatever the case may be. Next thing you know, somebody picks him and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Dalvin Cook was still there? Because normally when you have a guy like this that's that far down the board, you just assume that somebody else has already picked him, especially with those of us who really don't pay too much attention to who other people have drafted. We're just kind of paying attention to, our own team, if you will. You assume that a guy that good has already been picked. So that's the reason why I feel like in the next week and a half or so, he isn't going to rise by but so much. By the time those people that are drafting, the weekend of, or like, that Saturday, that Sunday before Thursday night football starts, there he's probably going to be right about, close to where he should be. But right now he's almost in running back sleeper territory. And that's crazy that he can be RB 30 as if he wasn't going to be playing at some point somewhere. But a guy with that consistency, now with having the best quarterback that he's played with at the helm, I can see him doing as much, if not more. And I don't see Breece Hall being an impediment. I can see that actually being an improvement for him, because now he doesn't have to get worn down by the second half of the season and play through injury based on the workload that he had on the front end. He can actually still be fresh, or they can kind of keep each other fresh throughout the season. And then it's not just the two of them. There's, other guys that can be involved while Breece Hall is on the men. So Dalvin Cook, that's my man's in there.
I mean, I love it. If he could definitely stay that low, I love it. I mean, I just don't see how in the algorithm, or however you want to call it, he's not going to rise by the next week. I mean, I love it. If it doesn't happen, cool. I'll be one of those guys sitting there waiting. But I'm thinking in the next week, this guy definitely should rise for sure. Like there's no
should
way,
for sure.
there's no way they can let this guy stay at running back 28 or something like that. I'll be highly, highly shocked if so.
What you got next for me?
Oh man. I'm ready to move on to the next position, to be honest with you.
Okay. Start us out with wide receiver.
And this kind of goes off of the guy you had as a honorable mention for quarterback. So I got to go with this new toy, fresh legs, Calvin Ridley. He's my guy. He's now making his return to the league, after nearly a 2-year hiatus. you hear all the stories in camp, man. This people are like, wow, they're wild bomb. You know what I'm saying? The route run. He's always been a good route runner, so that's
Right.
nothing. He's in the right offense. We've seen the maturation of Trevor Lawrence. He's getting better. He's trending up another year in his Doug Peterson's offense, and I think he's wide receiver one. I think he could be wide receiver one. He's not being currently drafted as one.
Right.
But I definitely think he's definitely for me, he definitely gonna be my man's in them. Because I mean his competition is Christian Kirk. You know, he's gonna take some targets and maybe even Ingram as well. But I think it's gonna be enough to go around for this guy to be successful. So and I think he has a lot to prove as well. So he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. So I'm gonna go with Calvin Ridley for me at the wide receiver position.
I like it. I like it. I have no complaints. I have no rebuttals. I can see him going back to being him. I just hope nobody tries to steal his girlfriend in the middle of the season, or he might go back to not being able to play anymore.
I hope he get his mind right, man.
So my first wide receiver is actually a stack with my first QB. I believe DJ Moore is about to go off this year. DJ Moore finally has a QB. His average draft position is wide receiver 19. Best QB he's ever had. Best wide receiver on the team. I can't not see a breakout for him unless there's injury. Now, even prior to when he was in Carolina, he was a very much consistent wide receiver. He just didn't have some of the high highs that I can see him having with having this particular system and having this particular quarterback. I can see him being fast friends and being the go-to guy for Justin Fields. And I think they're going to feed off of each other quite a bit. He's one of the reasons why I feel like Fields is going to be that dude. And Fields is one of the reasons I feel like DJ Moore is going to be that dude. So for me, my first wide receiver out the gate is going to be DJ Moore. I see him being a wide receiver 1, which means somewhere between wide receiver 1 to 12, probably back end wide receiver 1. I'm thinking somewhere between 9 to 12 is most likely. But he has the capability to be that, wide receiver 6, 7, 8, just depending on how things work out as far as Chicago's offense is concerned, injury, things of that nature. But I'm really, really high on DJ Moore. Talk me out the ledge or pat me on the back. Which one is it?
Man, you talking about 6, 7, 8. I definitely got to take you up the ledge with that. You're going a little too far. You know what I'm saying? Again, we talk about Justin Fields. I got to see it. It looks good.
I've seen it, though. I'm a Buckeye. I've seen the man play for 3 years.
I want to see it in NFL. I've seen a lot of people. Hey, look at all these Texas Tech quarterbacks on the pass just throw for 5,000
yards. Not the
same. Why not? Why not? I got to see it. Let me see it on this stage. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, is he the best quarterback that DJ Moore ever had? I guess.
Who's better?
I guess. I mean, Fields hasn't shown me anything as a passer. So what's
he didn't have anybody to pass the ball to?
He had a Pro Bowl receiver in Allen Robinson. Was he not?
That wasn't on Fields. That was on the coach. The coach hated Robinson. Like they didn't get him, and he didn't even get targets. Like in general.
Right.
But that was a few other complications involved there. And then I mean, and I don't know what the deal is with that, because even when Robinson went to the Rams, he wasn't targeted at all. I don't know if he's pissing people off in practice, if he's, cussing out the coaches on the sideline or what, but he's way too talented to have gone to 2 different situations and not even be looked at. So I don't really know how to judge that, but something going on with that situation. I wouldn't necessarily judge him by Robinson.
I mean, I like DJ Moore, but I don't think he's going to be. So what wide receiver 1, what is the cutoff on that?
12. The average league, well, it depends on the size of your league. So the average league, I would say, is about 12 people. So wide receivers 1 through 12 would be your RB1s. 13 through 24 would be your wide receiver 1s. Then 13 through 24 would be your wide receiver 2s. So that's how I'm kind of judging.
I can see 12. 6, I think you wilding. You know what I'm saying? I think you wilding. 6. I think you're going to go too far.
Special things can happen. I can see him 8 through 12. To be realistic, and as you said on the previous show, that may be one touchdown difference between wide receivers 8 through 12. So, I can see him in that realm of possibility.
I can see him in 12 for sure.
Who you got up next?
My boy, man. Brandon Ayuk, man.
He was next on my list. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk, man. I mean, this dude has come off of career highs across the board. You know what I'm saying? Targets, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Now, his chemistry that he has with Purdy is all based off that. If Jimmy G was there, I would not feel the same about this kid.
Facts.
But with him and Purdy, they on the same page. It looked like Deebo Samuel has now taken the back seat. And this guy is now the guy. A sweet stat people don't know. Ayuk was 8th in open rate as far as getting open, and that was tied with Devontae Adams last year, right? So great route runner. I like the division he's in. It's not like a lot of killer cornerbacks over there. The Rams are going to be horrible this year. Seattle, Arizona, you know what I mean? So within the division, he'll face a lot of teams with not pretty good pass defenses. Despite he's ranked only 36 in deep targets and 30th in the red zone targets, he still was able to get 8 touchdowns this year. You know what I'm saying? Or last year.
And Purdy's going to be even more comfortable. So I can see the uptick as far as the deep ball, especially with their current connection.
Right. And also, with CMC being there, it's all a plus. You know what I'm saying? This helps not a lot. And even with Deebo Samuels being the guy that maybe defenses will pay attention to a little bit more, even though I think he's now one of the most high-end decoys in the game, in my opinion. I hate to say it like that. You know what I'm saying? But Deebo is now.
They're going to put him in motion to take your eye off of Ayuk and others. And next thing you know, it's going to be a one-on-one situation. And Ayuk is sneaky fast. Like, buddy is quick.
Who do you put on Ayuk? Do you put number 1 corners over here? Number 1 corner, you see what I'm saying? So will the number 1 corner be on the Deebo if he's not in the slot? Or do you chase Ayuk around? So I think he's going to just see way better coverage.
And then your safeties, they got to keep their eye on Kittle and keep their eye on CMC. So he's going to have a lot of one-on-one situations. And get this, buddy right now, average draft position, wide receiver 28.
And Deebo is higher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what people not
seeing it.
You know what I'm saying? I'll give you another little stat I sent to somebody earlier today. Brock Purdy had 151 completions and 22. And right, 36 to C-Mac and 32 was the Ayuk. Deebo only had 22 of those. So he's already second on the team as far as completions. And that's to the running back who probably more screens and dump offs like that. So Ayuk, man, I think he's the guy. You know what I'm saying? He's the guy to own in this offense. Again, coming in that late as a wide receiver, man, the upside is definitely there. And this is a guy who can definitely be in the high-end wide receiver 2 finish. So that'd be my man's that wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk.
All right, so I have an honorable mention at wide receiver. People are sleeping and lightweight disrespecting DeAndre Hopkins. Buddy is the only wide receiver in Tennessee right now. Burks is hurt. Hopkins right now is wide receiver 21 off the board. The second best pass catcher in Tennessee is the tight end. And I just don't see him not getting peppered with targets, even though obviously Henry's going to get his share of carries. But
yeah, this is a run team.
It's a run team. However, in the red zone, and also you're a run team, but only when you can run. And what I mean by that is when it's situational football. And I don't see them being ahead in games to whereas they can just lean on Henry. In many games, they had to throw the ball more than they would have liked to last year. And I can kind of see this a similar setup going this year. And Hopkins is going to be the receiver of the vast majority of those targets. So wide receiver 21, I don't see any way, barring injury, of course, that he doesn't outperform wide receiver number 21. So for
But
that reason, DeAndre Hopkins is my man's in that.
so two things, right? So how do you feel about Tannehill being his quarterback? That's one. We haven't seen a good D Hop in 2 years. Last year he missed. He didn't play poorly, but he missed
He
most of
missed
the.
some time. Yeah.
And the year
That's what I
before,
said, barring injury. That's what I said, barring
the
injury.
year before is an injured season, so he didn't have a good season until over 2 years ago. So
Now, but also take into account that his quarterback got injured too. So I see Tannehill being a whole lot better than Colt McCoy. So I mean I can't put that necessarily on Hopkins specifically, but that's another reason why he's going as wide receiver 21. And we've seen Tannehill put up decent numbers. Now Tannehill can get injured too. So again, barring injury, if the quarterback or if Hopkins obviously gets hurt, then I can see things kind of going awry. But I don't see him not outperforming significantly wide receiver number 21. I can't see him not being a high end wide receiver 2 minimally.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, it's. I think a lot of people going off the name D Hop, right? And we say wide receiver 21, but there's some dudes, man. Like real quick, like who would you have him? Okay, the top 3 guys, of course, Jefferson, Chase, and Hill, right?
Right.
Cup, Adams, AJ, Lamb, and Diggs.
Okay.
Right. St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Waddle, Metcalf, Higgins. Really, we do.
That's well, I would put him right there, maybe right behind Higgins, and that's
So that's
only
like
because of
13.
Chase.
So that's like
Right.
13.
Yeah.
So I haven't even named Devonta
Close.
Smith. Haven't named
Go ahead.
Amari Cooper. Haven't made Terry McLaurin. Haven't named Olave.
And I would have him right there with those guys.
So
I would have him right there with those guys.
That's already. I'm
so
already.
That's why I said front end wide receiver too, because that's what 13, 14, 15, 16 in that area.
That's more 19ish. That's what I'm
Not
saying.
based on the people you've named so far.
Yeah.
You didn't name 17 wide receivers already.
When I said Higgins, I was already at 13. I named Cooper. I named Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin.
I think he'll be better than Terry, but not for where he is talent wise in his career. But looking at, I don't necessarily trust Sam Howell. And also, there are a lot of weapons to throw to on that team. I can see Dotson taking a step up. Howell loves De'Ami Brown. They went to college together, and he's getting a slew of targets. Also, Gibson is getting a ton of targets out of the backfield. So I can kind of see the ball being spread around a little bit in Washington. So, and Terry is no stranger to hell. He's injured right now. So I can see them right in that same, right in that same area.
I didn't name DJ Moore yet. I didn't name Christian Kirk.
I see him better than Kirk. I think Kirk takes a step back because of Ridley.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
And it's also predicated upon the fact that a lot of those guys have guys on their team that are going to take targets away. He won't have that issue at all.
But 2 people can be successful, right? I mean, we seen it last year, Devontae and AJ Brown. I mean, we seen Higgins, Chase. I mean, you seen Jefferson, Athelian. Like you see 2 guys be, pretty successful on the same team.
But look at all the teams where the number 1 wide receiver was talented and he had no competition. We've seen them go off more often than not as well. So it all boils down to, in my estimation, whether or not Hopkins or his quarterback is injured. because I don't feel like he's lost that much of a step as far as
Mhm.
talent is concerned. It's been injury. So if he's as talented as the guys that we're naming, but he isn't fighting anyone for targets, how can he not be in the same realm as them?
And you say he's wide receiver with 28?
He's his ADP right now is wide receiver 21.
Yeah. That's where his ass should be. He should be around 21. I mean, yeah, that's about right.
I think he'll outperform that. Just because if Burks was healthy and they had a few other, targets in there I think the beginning of his season will put him further ahead of guys that are just as talented as him. Now, when Burks comes back, I think it'll even out a little bit, but it's all gonna boil down to, and then also looking at with Henry, you can't really pay as much attention to Hopkins as you would in other scenarios too because of Henry. So he's literally going to be single covered for one of the only times that he's been out.
It's not like he's a burner or something. You know what I'm saying?
He don't have to be. He's been able to out catch people when he was double covered and couldn't burn them. That's my point. Like now he's the only guy.
He's a 31-year-old wide receiver now. He's speaking. This ain't D Hop.
Adams is how old? I mean, Adams is about the same age, ain't
he? Devontae?
Yeah. Ain't he like 29, 30?
Maybe. But, I mean, Devontae is the best receiver in the NFL.
I'll give you that.
I'll
give you that.
Him, I mean.
Well,
he's 30.
Real world wide receiver, yes. Fantasy wise, not quite. I think Jefferson has surpassed him fantasy wise, but real world wide receiver, yeah, definitely.
But what did Devontae finish last year?
Where did he finish last year?
I think he had some big games last year.
Let me check right quick. I want to say he was up there, but he was one of those guys that his quarterback situation kind of may have played a bit of a role. No, he was wide receiver number 3 in PPR.
Yeah.
But now he got Jimmy G. So remember what you were saying about the quarterback situation if Jimmy G was still the quarterback in 49er land?
Yeah.
Is Adams quarterback proof too? Is he Jimmy G proof? And I'll also throw out there that I don't think Jimmy G will be the quarterback throughout the year. I think Aiden O'Connell is going to end up taking over at some point, whether it be due to injury or just because Jimmy G refuses to throw the deep ball.
Maybe so. But I still got Devontae as the guy. I know Jefferson, he's coming, but he had more catches? He had more catches than Devontae last year.
Yeah.
And more yards, but Devontae had more. He led the league in touchdowns. I mean, so 14-8.
Big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So give me him, man.
Let's go ahead and round it out with go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you good. Go ahead.
Let's go ahead and round it out with the tight end position. I'll go ahead and start out. I have the rookie, Sam Laporta. He's a pass catching specialist.
Well, yeah.
He's not he wasn't drafted to block. The role within Detroit's offense is predicated towards having a pass catching tight end. Right now, his ADP is tight end 17, which makes him basically free. And I mean, another one of those guys that if it doesn't work out for you, no skin off of your teeth, go ahead and get rid of them. But it would have allowed you to pick guys in other positions that you aren't tight end dependent anyway. And maybe you grab a couple of tight ends and, maybe another one of the guys that we'll end up talking about in a few that you can kind of choose between, just depending on how the beginning of the season works out. But based on where he was drafted, the team that he's on, and how they utilize the tight end, I can see him being dependent on along the same lines as TJ Hawkinson was within the Detroit system, which means that this guy is going to end up being a lot higher than where his average draft position is. So for me, my first tight end is Sam Laporta. What you got?
Man, give me that dude on the same team we just spoke on from Tennessee, man. Chig.
Yeah.
He's the guy, man. I mean, Okonkwo, I think his name
Right.
is. But he had an average of 3.26 yards per route in 2022. And, and that led all tight ends. That led
Wow.
over Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Goddard, Kittle, Pitts, all those guys. Now, he didn't have the numbers they had because he came on a little late, finally
Right.
got opportunity. But being that now Tannehill's there, as a new guy and the new sheriff in town, I think the tight end will be utilized in his offense because again, you said Burks is out, and the best pass catcher on the team is D Hop, who can very well maybe still draw coverage.
Chig
I,
number 2 for sure on the
yeah,
team. He's the
so I
second best pass
think this
catcher.
guy can. He's a breakout candidate for sure. I like him a whole lot. I want to see where he's being currently drafted at. For tight end.
I want to say, let me see here. His average draft position, I want to say was like around tight end 12, if I'm not mistaken. But let me verify that.
Tight end 13. So
Okay, yeah, I thought it was somewhere around that.
yeah, he has a hell of a upside. Again, if you're not getting Kelsey in these early rounds, we spoke about this as far as getting these tight ends and they all kind of bunched together.
Right.
This would be a guy I would go after later in the draft and be satisfied with him as my tight end. But the numbers are there. Like I say, he's number one in the league with run per route. So I like him a lot. He's a yak guy. He
Right.
catch that ball.
Yes.
He's
When
going.
he catch the ball, he's basically Michael Turner
He's a
after he
violent runner.
catch the ball.
He's a violent runner. So I definitely could see them definitely trying to get him involved in his offense. Maybe off some pass, some play action play, things like that. So get Chig, man. Okonkwo, he my guy as far as the tight ends go this year.
My last guy for tight end, David Njoku. Cleveland's offense will be much improved. They didn't have to deal with any of the noise this offseason that they had to deal with last offseason. They won't have to deal with, a fill-in quarterback until Watson comes along. So a lot less distractions. Njoku's average draft position is tight end number 10. He ended the season last year with all that tumultuousness as tight end number 10. He's getting major targets as far as the red zone is concerned. Watson is very much comfortable with him. And he's another one of those guys that at tight end 10, he's not going to cost you very much to find out. You can pair a Chig, an Njoku, or a Laporta, figure out which ones ends up working out best, or both of them work out, trade one, whatever the case may be, or keep them both, however you want to work that.
So
But
Laporta, what tight end is Laporta right now?
17.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's way back. I mean, he's basically free.
Yeah, that's like a last pick in the draft. Looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his stock isn't really rising very quickly. So I mean, he's again one of those guys that if you pair a Laporta and a Chig, I'm very much comfortable going into the season with that pairing and having spent almost zero draft capital on that tight end position versus giving up a wide receiver 1 or 2 or a running back 1 or 2 because I went high on a tight end that may end up only with negligible point differences from these guys at the back end. So that's my last guy for tight end. Did you have anybody else for tight end?
No, man, that's the only guy I love. You know how I feel about tight ends, man. If you ain't got the top guys, and everybody, I do like Laporta as well, especially sitting at 17. I think he's a steal.
Absolutely.
He'll be somebody I'll have my eye on if I'm not able to grab maybe a slide, like a Kelsey slid to me or something like that. But which I know somebody jump out there on him early. So
exactly.
I'm definitely a fan of Laporta and Chig, man. Chig the guy. He's a guy for me. I think he's going to be explosive this year. And I think he's tight end 13. I could see him cutting half of that. So I could see him finishing top
Facts.
6 or 7. You know what I mean? So
definitely. And make sure you guys visit the Facebook site the Fantasy Football Fiend family Facebook group. You'll be able to see Bro Joe's picks. He couldn't be with us tonight, but he's going to put all of his info and the stats and everything that he used to come up with his picks. He's going to put that on wax for you there on the website. So make sure you check it out. And again, we are on YouTube. So make sure you check us out on YouTube for all of our loyal listeners to the podcast for the audio version. But for this week.
And real quick, before we go, I just started a Twitter. And that's FF_Vander. So feel free to, give me a follow. And if you have any questions about your draft as the season go on, who should I start? Any of your fancy questions, tag me in it, and I got you.
You heard it here first. FF_Vander, the fantasy phenom. He'll definitely give you the right answers to your questions. But for this week, we out.